We're gathering together as saints, as brothers and sisters, and preparing for the second coming of Christ. We want to be there together, and we want to be there strong together.
A family is torn apart by cultism and murder. Did they really believe the world was ending?
Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow's extreme beliefs about the end of the world, as described by their friends, are now clearly part of the investigation into the deaths of Lori's children, JJ and Tylee, Lori's ex-husband Charles, Chad's wife Tammy, and Lori's brother Alex Cox.
This is the unbelievable true story of Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow and their murders.
Has she made any statements about wanting to hurt the children or anything?
Today she said with Gabe on the phone, come take the kids. I don't care what happens to them. I can't get in touch with my kids.
How old are your kids?
6.5 and 16.
In late January 2019, Charles Vallow returned from a work trip in Houston to find his truck missing from the airport parking lot and $35,000 taken from his bank account. Worse yet, he said he couldn't get in touch with JJ and Tylee.
How does she pose a threat to your children?
I don't know what she's going to do with them. I don't know if she's going to flee with them, she's going to hurt them.
Gilbert police showed up to their house after Charles filed a petition to get Lori involuntarily committed for a mental health evaluation.
She's lost her mind. I don't know how else to say it. We're LDS. She thinks she's a resurrected being and a God, and remember the 144,000. She's come. Jesus is coming next year. She said, "You're not Charles. I don't know who you are, what you did with Charles, but I can murder you now with my powers."
Charles explained to the officers that Lori had changed over the last couple of months, and she had people in Utah telling her how many lives she's had.
You're a dark spirit. That's what she's going to tell you.
Okay.
I'm a dark spirit.
Officers had Charles kick in the door to his own house, but ultimately told him Lori hadn't committed a crime. Fast forward to 12 hours later, Lori and Tylee, along with a family friend, showed up to the Gilbert Police Department.
So yesterday, I got in an argument with my husband on the phone, and he was in Texas working, and I found some stuff that he'd been doing, so he was really defensive. And so I took the kids. We spent the night in a hotel because I knew he was coming home.
Lori told officers Charles showed up to JJ's school and stole her purse out of her car. He then used her phone to text her friends to come to the house.
He's acting like that my son was in danger. I've been worried about JJ's safety.
The officers called Charles to ask for Lori's purse back. He asked if they would serve her the order. When they brought up the mental health evaluation, Lori couldn't help but laugh.
Sorry. I just think it's funny because he's trying to tell everything.
Right.
A couple of weeks later, Charles filed for a divorce. By July, he was dead.
It's going to get real interesting.
Other body camera footage shows an officer talking to one of Charles's friends on the phone. That person witnessed the phone call where Lori said that she would, quote, destroy Charles. However, he said that she never made any threats towards the kids other than that Charles can have them if he wants them.
July 2019. Lori Vallow's brother, Alex Cox, shot and killed her husband, Charles Vallow.
911, where is your emergency?
It's at 5531 South Four Peaks. I think it's Four Peaks Lane, I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, you don't know the direction?
I don't know the street name, if it's a lane or court.
5531 East, though?
Yeah, or south? South Four Peaks.
5531 South Four Peaks in Chandler, is that right?
Yes.
You need
Yes.
police or paramedics?
Both. I'm in police and an ambulance.
What's the emergency there?
I got in a fight with my brother-in-law and I shot him in self-defense.
About 2 hours after Charles Vallow was shot and killed in a Chandler home, Lori Vallow, his estranged wife, walked into the Chandler police interview room, beaming with joy over Tylee's school grades. She leaned forward and sat up in the chair as the interview officially started.
If you can just kind of tell me kind of what happened. It sounds like some of this may have started last night or something along those lines.
Right.
So start where you think it makes the most sense.
Okay, so,
She explained to the detective that she and Charles were separated, but Charles was coming over to take JJ to school. He left his phone inside the house, and when he came back in, Lori had it and wouldn't give it back. She said that's why her brother Alex came out of his room. Charles and Alex started fighting, and Tylee, her 17-year-old daughter, came out with a bat and then went outside to be with her brother. Once Alex pulled the trigger, Lori left with the kids. When the detective left Lori's room, she grabbed a tissue and dabbed her eyes. Then, she closes her eyes and nods off. Chandler police also released this video showing Lori in the drive-thru at Burger King on the way to taking JJ to school.
breakfast for dinner and dinner for breakfast.
Tylee, just 17 years old, was also a witness to the scuffle inside the Chandler home. While waiting for the detective in an interview room, she was fidgeting and humming, but then broke down. She told a similar story to investigators.
Do you know what happened inside of the house? Has your mom kind of explained it all to you?
I just kind of asked her, like, because I heard a noise, which I know what it was now, but it sounded like, because I knew that the basement I was in there, it sounded like someone, like, took it and hit it really hard against the floor.
Tylee told detectives she tuned out all the yelling and didn't know what the fight between her stepfather and uncle was about.
This is what Lori's now dead husband Charles told police in Arizona about how Lori's religious beliefs had become disturbingly extreme.
Her religious stuff has gone way off the deep end. She threatened me physically. She made threats about the kids. She doesn't care what happens to them. Come get them. I don't care. We won't hear that much longer anyway. And I'm back by God's knowledge. I can kill you if I want, anytime I want. It's just irrational stuff. Yeah. She needs some serious help. I want her to get help. I'm worried about her.
This would unfold into a series of events that would lead to more murders and unanswered questions. Several months prior, Charles Vallow expressed concern that his wife's mental health was going downhill. His wife began listening to Chad Daybell, and eventually she was on the podcast with him, where they talked about the end of the world.
On the streets of Rexburg, Idaho, we start to get a clearer picture of a mysterious, loose-knit group of people who follow Chad Daybell.
It sounds like a preparedness group for the end of the world, doomsday type of thing.
An offshoot of the Mormon Church with extreme views. We hear that Ground Zero is Chad Daybell's neighborhood, so that's where we are headed, looking for somebody within the group who will talk. Moments later, I'm taking a walk with a follower. She says she and Chad both communicate with spirits, that they are true members of the Mormon Church, preparing for the end of the world, and she doesn't judge Chad, even if he's guilty, because we're all sinners. Chad and Lori also used a media organization to attract followers. It's called Preparing a People. It is no longer active, and the owners stated, "We are innocent of any involvement in Chad and Lori's personal lives. Our relationship was mostly business. We have wondered if Chad and Lori used us for their media purposes without us knowing what was going on behind the scenes. It does feel like a big betrayal."
Both Lori and Chad told friends and family that they are part of the 144,000, which is a biblical reference from the book of Revelation.
The book of Revelation has a chapter in which it talks about how when Jesus comes back to the earth, or in anticipation of that, then there will be 12,000 elders or members from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. And so when you do 12 times 12,000, that's how you get to 144,000.
According to friends, Chad believes that he and Lori are not only part of the 144,000, but that it's up to them to lead the other chosen ones after the second coming of Christ, which, according to Chad, is going to happen very soon.
That's Chad Daybell talking about his books on a website called Preparing a People. The video has been removed.
In his books, Daybell claims that near-death experiences, the first when he was a teenager diving off a cliff, gives him the unique ability for visions, a sixth sense of events that will happen or are about to happen. According to his friends, Chad had visions that his wife Tammy was going to die, that Charles Vallow's body had been taken over by a zombie, and that Lori's children, 7-year-old JJ and 16-year-old Tylee, were also zombies. Chad, according to friends, also believes that he's had many previous lives and has even been married to Lori in past lives on different planets. Chad told his friend Julie Rowe he was James the Less, or James the Just, one of the 12 apostles.
He started telling me about how he had an attack. He was in his living room in Rexburg, Idaho. The way he described it was that his veil was more open than it had been, and he started remembering some of his past lives.
How and why Chad and Lori's religious views became so extreme is unclear. Friends of both say something changed.
Chad's been a very prolific author, so in the past I would say a lot of his publications are very much in the mainstream, but it does seem that recently their trajectory seems to be taking them away from the kind of center where most people in the faith would have.
Chad Daybell believes that he can talk to the dead, that he was a prophet. Daybell believed that he was chosen. He claimed that a near-death experience gave him supernatural abilities. He claims the world is coming to an end and that we will all be subjected to microchips and taken over by Russia and China. Chad claimed that he heard voices. Lori first met Chad in Hawaii, and both believed that they were supernatural beings, and that in 7 lives they previously lived, they were soulmates. He also believed that he was the reincarnation of Martin Luther. A cult never calls themselves a cult. They just are. And Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow claim to be members of the LDS Church, but their faith couldn't be any further from the truth. Chad told Lori that Charles, her husband at the time, was a zombie. Charles knew that he was going to die. Lori Vallow believed that there were several people in power that were evil. She believed that Oprah Winfrey was at the head of it all. Shortly after the murder of her husband, she, her brother, her niece, Melanie, and Lori's 2 kids relocated to Rexburg, Idaho. Was she trying to distance herself from her husband's murderer? Perhaps police should have checked more into Alex Cox's self-defense alibi. JJ Vallow, age 7, and Tylee Vallow, 17, would go missing around September of 2019. Investigators found that Lori had a storage unit and were able to collect surveillance footage of Lori and her brother, take a number of items belonging to JJ Vallow and Tylee Vallow into the unit, including several heavy containers. There was also another man on camera footage that police couldn't verify. Some have suspected that this was Chad Daybell. Lori's niece's ex-husband would be the next target.
Someone just shot my window.
On the night of October 2nd, 2019, Brandon Boudreau says he was headed to his home in Gilbert when someone fired a shot that hit his front driver's window, just inches above his head.
All I could think was, someone's shooting at me. What do I need to do? I need to hit the gas and get out of here.
Boudreau says he saw a rifle with a silencer come out of the back window of a gray Jeep Wrangler, which police say is registered to Charles Vallow, Lori's ex-husband. Charles Vallow died in July, shot to death in Chandler by Lori's brother Alex Cox. Cox is also dead. He was found unresponsive in Gilbert a few months later.
Just makes you sad. You know, like a lot of people you care about aren't here anymore because of these ideas.
In a December interview, Boudreau said Lori Vallow's beliefs are extreme, and his ex-wife Melanie had followed Lori in joining a cult.
Their focus is just so much on the end of the world and, you know, this idea that it's coming. In
recently filed documents, Boudreau claims his ex-wife confessed to her current husband that she'd conspired with her uncle Alex Cox to kill Boudreau. He says she had $1 million of reasons to have him killed, and that he thinks Melanie was hoping to cash in on the policy to help support the cult she's a part of.
I think it's an infatuation with the end of the world.
Boudreau also says his ex knows where the 2 missing children are, and she's been unwilling to cooperate with police. In the documents, he says Melanie had said things like, "Children are full of light," and then just like that, they go dark.
Brendan recognized the vehicle as belonging to Charles Vallow, who was murdered earlier that year. Who was the gunman? Why were they driving Charles Vallow's vehicle?
Court records accuse Lori's niece, Melanie Pulowski, of being involved in a cult with Lori and Chad. She's also accused of being involved in a shooting attempt on her ex-husband's life. She testified that Gilbert police consider her an investigative lead in that case, but says that she is not a suspect. She also denies that her ties to Lori Vallow Daybell and her family mean that she is an unfit mother.
October 9th, 2019. Tammy Daybell calls the police and reports that a masked gunman tried to kill her with the exact gun that Lori's niece's ex said his gunman had. It looked like a paintball gun. October 19th, 10 days after this incident, Tammy dies. Natural causes? That is what it was ruled.
Not long after Tammy Daybell died in her home in Salem, Idaho in mid-October, the Fremont County Sheriff's Office received a call from a detective in Arizona.
The decedent's going to be a Tamara Daybell?
Oh, yes. I was the one that actually took that call. So why someone from Arizona wanting to know? That's crazy.
Yeah, isn't it funny how everything ties together? We just have some cases down here that got our attention with Miss Daybell.
The cases he's talking about could include the attempted shooting of a relative of Lori Vallow Daybell in Gilbert in October, or the July shooting death of Lori's late husband Charles Vallow in Chandler. Lori married Tammy's husband, Chad Daybell, less than 2 weeks after Tammy died. At the time, the sheriff's office investigated and said they found nothing suspicious. The coroner ruled the death was due to natural causes. The dispatcher explains to the Arizona detective it wasn't just the coroner who didn't want to press the investigation any further.
The family did not want an autopsy, so they just went straight to the funeral home, and the family refused an autopsy.
The family said they don't want an autopsy, therefore the coroner just signed off then and there, and then the funeral home took Miss Daybell? Is that how that works?
Yes, that's pretty much how it works.
In November, 2 weeks after laying his wife's body to rest, Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow got married. It reportedly took place in Hawaii. Chad Daybell would collect close to $430,000 in insurance from his wife's death. November 26th, a welfare check is done on JJ. Police arrived where Lori and Chad were staying and met with Chad Daybell and Alex Cox. Police began questioning the two. Alex lied to police, claiming that JJ was living with his grandparents. In reality, his grandparents were the ones to ask for the welfare check that sent police to Chad and Lori's home. Once police were able to contact Lori, they were met with more lies. Lori claimed that JJ was staying with a friend. That friend was contacted and informed police that they hadn't seen JJ in months.
Vallow and her new husband Chad Daybell fleeing Idaho, heading to Hawaii 1 day after authorities performed a welfare check looking for the kids.
Where are your kids? No comment? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say?
Vallow married Daybell just days after his wife died, and 3 months after her husband was shot to death by her brother. Police are now investigating the death of Daybell's former wife.
Shortly after the welfare check, police obtained a search warrant where Chad Daybell and Lori were staying. When police arrived, they found that Chad and Lori were gone.
According to East Idaho News, police obtained a search warrant for Vallow's home and the storage unit, finding children's bikes, photo albums, blankets, and clothing in the unit.
Can you tell me where your kids are?
It's been 1 week since Vallow ignored a deadline to physically produce her children, failing to bring 17-year-old Tylee Ryan and 7-year-old JJ to authorities. The kids have been missing since September.
November 29th, Alex Cox gets married and takes his wife's last name. Was this to conceal his identity? Melanie would also get remarried.
How close are you to Lori?
My mom passed away when I was 9, and Lori is one of the closest things to her and how much love my mom showed me. So she's a friend, almost like a mother to me, and an aunt, and somebody that I love.
Do you think that Tylee and JJ were in danger? Do you think that Lori thought they were zombies? Do you think that she thought that their spirits had left them?
I didn't think they were in danger and didn't have those fears and doubts until this welfare check. And then Chad and Lori left. I didn't have contact with them, and I'm absolutely worried. I knew the threats that Lori had been getting, and I don't know what's going on. And so as you know, being in a new marriage, I'm kind of dumping on him. I'm worried about this, I'm worried about this. Meanwhile, we have all these false accusations and questions about this supposed shooting that Brandon Boudreaux is claiming that happened.
Shortly after, December 1st, Chad and Lori flew to Hawaii and began living there. On December 6th, the friend of JJ came forward to police, claiming that Chad and Lori asked them to lie.
It's about Thanksgiving and everything changed. I thought he was safe, and I get a call from Chad.
So that call comes completely out of the blue.
Out of the blue. Wasn't expecting that at all.
He says, don't pick up the phone when the police call. He's scared, he's nervous. He says they're gonna call you because they're at Lori's house.
And she's going to tell them that JJ's with you.
She's gonna tell the cops that JJ's with you in Arizona.
No, I was in Utah at the time.
You were in Utah.
Yeah.
First of all, that's a bombshell that's just thrown.
I can't even describe how I felt. They put me in a very awkward situation.
December 12th, Alex is found dead, only a short time after being married.
Here, please.
Newly released body camera footage from the day Alex Cox died, shedding new light on what happened. That's the voice presumed to be of Alex's wife, Zulema, on December 12th, 2019. The rest of what she says is then drowned out. Gilbert police blurred out this video, and while you can't see much, we are able to hear some of what was said among those who were on scene that day.
I don't know. That's what Mike is probably one of our best paramedics.
He was blue when I walked in.
What's that?
He was blue when I walked in until I started doing compressions. He was blue on the face.
In the clips, you later hear Zulema's son tell officers he found Alex lying on the bathroom floor. This is a conversation between Zulema and one of the officers on scene, after paramedics took Alex to the hospital where he was later pronounced dead.
I'm just wondering, is it possible for you guys to wait outside? My kids are already going through enough trauma as it is without you guys standing right next to them.
So we're definitely not trying to make things worse, ma'am. We're not trying to have anybody feel bad or be anxious, but someone died in your house today, and we're not going to leave your house until we finish that investigation. So
let me ask you this. So why are you saying that someone died in the house when he wasn't even pronounced dead until he was in the hospital?
Well, the incident started here. I get that he was pronounced deceased at the hospital, but all of that started here. It didn't start in the hospital. It started in this house.
In one of the clips released, you can also hear first responders doing chest compressions on Alex.
I was hoping that they would let me say goodbye to him because they took me away from, the detective took me out of the room.
More insight into an already complicated and convoluted case.
2020 rolled around and police and FBI searched the home of Chad Daybell. That took several devices and documents to experts. January 7th, JJ's grandparents issue a statement to Lori, "Bring home Tylee and JJ." Shortly thereafter, police located Chad and Lori and served them with a court order to physically produce the children, something to prove that the children were alive. They would later obtain another warrant that would seize Lori and Chad's rental car, obtaining several of the children's items like an iPad, government documents, and other belongings of Tylee and JJ. Tylee's bank card was frequently used. In late February, Lori was arrested and her bond was set at $5 million and lowered to $1 million.
The 46-year-old seen here being brought in on a warrant issued by Madison County, Idaho. Her husband, Chad Daybell, photographed nearby as his wife enters police custody. According to the police press release, Vallow was also arrested on investigation of resisting or obstructing officers, criminal solicitation to commit a crime, and contempt of court.
On June 9th, 2020, Chad Daybell's property was searched, and the remains of Tylee and JJ were found.
This is the probable cause document that allowed detectives to secure the search warrant for a closer look at Chad Daybell's property. In paragraph 20, we find text messages between Chad and his first wife, Tammy. This is the day after the last known sighting of Tylee Ryan at Yellowstone National Park. In it, Chad talks about burning, quote, limb debris by the fire pit. When he spotted a big raccoon along the fence, he hurried and got his gun and shot it, saying, quote, he is now in our pet cemetery. Fun times. Detectives saying they found that suspicious. Then Alex Cox, Lori Vallow's brother, enters the picture. Detectives pinging his cell phone and discovering that he was in the same area described by Chad Daybell as the location of the pet cemetery. He was there for 2.5 hours. The FBI further analyzed Cox's movements, finding he was also on the property on the morning of September 23rd, the day after JJ was last seen. This time he was there for 17 minutes. The cell phone pinged near the pond on the northern edge of the property. What's more, detectives discovered that on both dates, Alex was at Lori's home before heading to Chad's property. And the night before JJ went missing, Lori had company from out of town, her friends Melanie Gibb and David Warwick. Both say that Lori claimed JJ had become a zombie and that Alex carried him to his room, never to be seen again.
They had a fire.
These movements, along with observations from neighbors about large bonfires at the Daybell home, allowed detectives and the FBI to triangulate the exact areas of interest on the property. Officers serving the search warrant last week finding disturbed ground, a layer of sod on top of rocks. That's where they discovered JJ's body wrapped in plastic near the pond. At a second site near the fire pit and pet cemetery, they found human bones and charred tissue, later identified to be Tylee Ryan. The affidavit also says that Chad Daybell was watching the search very closely and eventually tried to leave in his SUV. That's when officers pursued and arrested him.
Mr. Daybell's intention was, through his counsel, to turn himself into the court if that was something that was going to happen.
His attorney later alleged that Daybell was driving to turn himself in.
Lori and Chad still believe the world is coming to an end. Who killed Tylee and JJ Vallow? We will continue to follow this story as it plays out.